Hi, everyone joining us today. Welcome from wherever you are in the world. Today, we will be discussing MBA education loans, how much it takes to, repay the loans, the ROI of the MBA, and the actual costs that maybe aren't in the budgets that schools are publishing. We're very lucky to have some very impressive panelists today. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Stacy. I grew up on the East Coast, and I've been working consulting for the past 4 years. I'm an incoming MIT Sloan MBA candidate, and I will be moderating today's session. Today for the panelists, we have Abhishek, Dalal, and Mahima, who are either MBA grads or incoming MBA students as well. So that all being said, I think it'd be great to kick off this session by, kind of hearing a little bit and learning more about the panelists that we have today. Mahima, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Stacy. So I'm Mahima. I am an incoming student at Michigan Ross School of Business. And I would be speaking about journey, how to choose a school where you have a scholarship versus where you don't. Spoiler, I don't have a scholarship in Ross and I chose it. So happy to take questions on that.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Dalal. Thank you, Stacy, for the intro. I'm Dalal. I'm from Kuwait. I'm an international student. I'm an incoming candidate at Kellogg School of Management, and I'm joining for the MMM program, so the dual degree. My background is in edtech and entrepreneurship, and then music, singing. So very non-traditional. So yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Abhishek. I'm actually not a recent graduated 2 years ago. I'm going to mostly talk about the life after getting an MBA and this education loan at the top of you. And I currently work as a lead product manager at ADP in Los Angeles area.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing a little bit more about yourselves. I'm sure we'll learn even more throughout the session. Awesome. So I think we can jump right into it. Before we get started, I just wanted to add, if there are any questions that you have for the panelists, we will be answering those about 30 minutes into the session. So please feel free to post them in the chat or in the comment box, and then we will get to those after the session. Awesome. So let's jump into it. So I think the first question that a lot of the folks on the line probably want to know is, what for you is the ROI of the MBA? How did you decide it was worth it for you given the high cost of it? Mahima, do you want to get started, or Abhishek?
Yeah, I can go first. So ROI of an MBA, I would say whatever money I spend in those 2 years is worth today. I can see, obviously, your first year salary is, if you're working hard and getting that ROI, like money in, your first year salary is way more than what you are spending. So number one, so definitely it's a life-changing experience. For me personally, I joined MBA program after a software engineering background. And today, personally, I see a huge professional growth in the business terms along with my tech background. So that's the first question. ROI, definitely it's worth it. I took a loan for over 100K, and it's a long duration, 25, 30 years. It's not something that you gotta have to pay right away. I would say I enjoyed the best out of my MBA life, be it socially with friends, be it traveling. I did travel 11 countries in 1 year, so you can consider how much I got out of this MBA program. Tons of international exchange programs, and in terms of whether it was the next question was, how did I decide whether it was worth it for me? I think I knew that education loan is something I can pay off over the next 25, 30 years of my life, but this time of my life would never come back. So how can I get the most out of this throughout my MBA program as well as post my MBA program?
Awesome.
So I think I cannot speak from experience, but from hope, right? So I am an incoming MBA candidate, and For me, how I decided it was worth it is speaking to people like Abhishek, right? I have spoken to more than 50 odd people in the last 1.5 years, and not a single person has told me that they regret doing their MBA or taking a loan for their MBA, right? I also come from a consulting background already, and we have tons of people from Ross, the college I'm going to, in the firm, and speaking to them also, I realized that the college is worth it, right? Not just the course, but then the college. uh, how I decided it was worth it, I mean, not looking at what's going to change for me in the next couple of months or years, but in the longer duration, what my longer term goal is, right? Thinking that through, I do see an MBA being worth it, because I might be a little, short on choices, or I might be a little risk averse first couple of years out of MBA. Simple reason, I am more scared of loan or like debt in general, right? But once I have some confidence in myself, or maybe even I've paid some amount of it, right? I think the world's your oyster after that, and that's exactly what I feel. That's exactly why I feel an MBA is worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I would say, first of all, I'm from Kuwait. So in Kuwait, most Kuwaiti students usually they get scholarships from like the government. So I was in actually I was in a really like weird spot a few months ago where I was like, okay, I'm not getting the scholarship because I chose the dual degree program because Kuwait only funds the MBA program. I'm not getting the scholarship because I'm going for the dual degree program. Am I going to take a loan from financial aid? Is that something that I want to consider? And I was thinking, I put an Excel sheet in front of me. I was looking at like if it's worth it or not. So I guess I was in the same spot as a lot of like people that are watching this webinar right now. And the reason why I decided that it was worth it is because, adding on what Mahima was mentioning and Abhishek, the connections that you will get from business school. I've already joined a bunch of like Slack channels and WhatsApp groups with like the Kellogg students, and oh my god, the value that I'm getting already, and I'm not even there yet. So it is just insane, and like the collaborative community, everyone really wants to help. The moment that I told like the students that I might defer because of visa issues as an international student, like a lot of people reached out and they were like, oh my God, do we have someone in the UC, SIS, whatever, like we can help. And just that whole community of like collaboration and being there for each other and the connections. And I think, of course, without saying like the stamp of having a school like Kellogg on your resume, that is a huge ROI actually in the long term. And then, of course, the educational quality, because I think about like the jobs that I want to like have in the long term and what I want to do like after the MBA. And then I think there's a lot of like topics that I'm not very much good at because I've been out of like undergrad. I'm 35 today. So I've been out of undergrad like for a long, long time. I'm like an older applicant. So I know that once I get into Kellogg and the all the finance, like the finance, the accounting, all those classes are going to kind of like refresh my mind and prepare me for like the job market in the future. So is it insane or genius? Absolutely genius to take a loan. So I answer the question. Absolutely genius to take a loan. It's worth it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. Well, definitely there's a lot of intangibles, as you guys have said, that are kind of addition to the hard costs of the MBA that I'm sure a lot of people might be thinking about or might not know about. So this is definitely, I'm sure, helpful for the people listening. The next question, I think you guys all talked about it a little bit already, but in terms of either how you already financed your MBA or how you plan to finance your MBA, is it through savings, loans, scholarships, etc.? Can you speak a little bit more about that and kind of your journey through figuring out how to finance it?
Okay, I can go first. So, how to finance my MBA? So basically, I had around 70% scholarship, so that was a huge help. But along with that, still the cost of living. So it's when I say MBA, it's not only about the tuition fees, but also about the XYZ other factors. For example, the cost of the fees. You're joining different clubs here at a business school, whether it's a consulting club, tech club. Every club has their own dollar amount associated with it. Then every school has some global exchange programs that if you are interested to work do, you can go for it. So that's another cost. Living expenses are also included. If you're coming from an international country where the currency value is low versus USD, it's a lot. Like $2,000 per month of rent is a lot of money. So I think that also considers, and then the normal day-to-day food. Being in an MBA program, definitely you would like to be social, because this MBA program is all about networking, building relationship with people, going out for social events. So I think that's really important factor to the cost as well. And like as I said, there are a lot of global exchange programs that are every school offers. It's again, if you really want to understand, learn about the culture, business, history of another country, another business school around the world. Those are really, really great programs for you to understand business as a whole. So all of this adds up to the cost of the program. Yep.
Awesome.
I don't think I can add more in terms of the elements which are the cost, because Abhishek has experienced those, right? But this is rather was a fear which I had, which is that over and above the tuition, right? Like you need to have enough savings. So I personally like have saved in the last 5 years that I've been working. So I plan on using my personal savings for the first 1.5 years at least. And given that the MBA program is 20 months, my sense is that a bit of earnings from the internship might just add some more for my remaining months. Uh, I also have taken a loan for the tuition. So I am going with zero scholarship. So I chose a college with zero scholarship. So for me, I have taken loan for the tuition, and the rest is my savings and my family savings if needed. Uh, I don't have clarity on what are the costs I would incur there, but I've heard exactly what Abhishek said. So I've kept enough buffer. Students like us who are coming from international domain countries, right? Like we keep looking, keep an eye on the exchange rate. I've been keeping an eye on it and kind of want to just convert it today and not wait for another month, probably to save up on some money. So I think for us it gets a little disheartening, but I think in the end. You're spending in that, so potentially you're also getting back in that currency in the longer run. So it should be fine.
Yeah, for me, I would say it was savings mostly, and then a loan like Mahima. So it's definitely worth it, of course, to take a loan, in my opinion. So savings, loan, and then of course there's, they always tell you like if you go to business school, you should quit your job, you should, right? It's kind of hard to do that when you're an entrepreneur and then you're going to business school. So if you kind of like have your own business and then you have kind of the flexibility to make some money on the side, I would definitely encourage you to do so. Also, one of the things that I would encourage students to do, because, the nightmare, the GMAT. so the GMAT, because we study so hard for it, right? I mean, your brain is like fresh with that, even when you like get into business school. So I think a good side hustle is to actually tutor the GMAT, because you could be doing so much money on the side, just to kind of like cover maybe like rent or cover just like half of the rent or something like that, right? So I do encourage students to kind of like maybe look at side hustles of like things that they can leverage or capitalize on, like their own skills. And then the other thing that I would say, of course, I know that like some students were talking about, like in our Kellogg Slack channel, we're talking about like teaching assistant jobs and things like that, right? Internships, right? So it would be nice to kind of just like 100% focus on business school. But, I mean, with today's day and age, like the expenses and the costs, I have 3 dogs with me. So I'm going to business school with like my 3 tiny dogs. So that is an additional expense, right? Like vet costs, like vet bills, all these things, right? So, I mean, for me, I have dogs. Someone else might have a cat, might have like a little sister, little brother that they're taking care of, like back home, things like that. So it's definitely hard to just kind of like just kind of focus on business school 100% and not really try to make like a side income type of thing, especially if you're blessed to have your own business and you can do that and you did not like resign from your job. So I think that is something that I am planning to do. So loan savings and then making money from GMAT tutoring and like career coaching and things like that I do. So yes, and then Fiverr. So
Yeah, I just want to call out one thing. If you're an international student coming, you need to check with your school legal department, the USCIS department, because as an international, you're not allowed to work. If you're an F1 student visa, you're not allowed to work other than a teaching assistant job or your OPT, which is an internship or your full-time job. So just want to make sure we call this out because it's legally not allowed to work offline, take tutoring and all of the other side hustles.
Absolutely.
I did not know that. That's actually interesting. Thank you, Abhishek.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm guilty of working till the last day possible, right? For as much as possible before my MBA. So I'm resigning literally 2 weeks before I'm flying. I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do, but for me, that's also another reason, right? Like why I'm working till the very last is because it always helps to have some extra funds with you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Abhishek, just kind of given that you've gone through the experience before, I think Dalal was talking about some different ways that you could make money, obviously once you're allowed to as an international student, or if you can start as a domestic student earlier, but whether through teaching assistantships or other things, could you speak a little bit more about what you yourself did or your peers did?
Yeah, sure. So I did have some of the teaching assistant jobs within campus. And so, as I mentioned, as an F1 student visa international candidate, you are not allowed. You're departing, you're canceling your visa if you end up doing something outside of your teaching assistant job. So that's important. Secondly, every school has a lot of teaching assistant opportunities. It's not only about your MBA program, teaching assistants, but also for BBA programs or other undergrad programs. So I did play a lot of role in providing teaching assistance of communication programs for BBAs, presentations like what we were learning as an MBA. I was acting as a teaching assistant for those guys so that I get to practice and share my knowledge with the new generation, the undergrads. So I would say that is the source of revenue. Secondly, as an OPT, once you're done with the first year of MBA, if you're going for I would say a 2-year program, not a 1 year, for a 2-year program, you get a certain duration of time to work as an OPT, optional practical training. No, it's CPT. It's curriculum practical training is the first that you do after your first year, which also has some limitations of up to 40 hours a week, and there's a total duration, 10 to 12 weeks. Once that CPT is done, once you graduate, you get CPT, which is curriculum practical training, where no, it's other way around. Sorry, optional practical training, where you get a chance to work. Depending on whether your MBA program is a STEM degree versus not. If you have a STEM degree, you get 1+2, 3 years of total OPT versus a non-STEM degree where you get 1 year of OPT. So that's how the entire MBA program for an international looks like. But if you're a domestic candidate, it doesn't matter. You can work whatever you want to do, right? You can finance from whichever way. But the US government has some restrictions on someone who's coming on a student visa.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's helpful. Yeah. Awesome. So the next question that I wanted to ask was around, kind of choosing programs. If you are comfortable speaking about it or if it's relevant, how did you kind of weigh in the financing aspect when you were choosing a program? Since I think, people are planning to apply to a few more programs or, a couple programs, they might be lucky enough to get admitted to a few. Maybe some have scholarship offers, maybe some don't. How did you kind of weigh that in your decision-making process?
Anyone want to go first? Yeah, I can take that. It's fairly fresh in my mind. So I had to make that difficult choice, right? And honestly, GMAT Club also was one of the places where I had actually put that question and got some inputs. But I would like to start by saying there is no right answer, right? It's obviously dependent. It's a function of your personal aspirations, your personal financing situation. So I had a scholarship from Emory for 90K, so which is a good amount. I had a 40K scholarship from Rotman. I had a scholarship from Cambridge as well, and I had Michigan Ross without a scholarship. For me, the choice was mainly between Emory, Gosweta, and Ross after a point. Because I kind of eliminated the rest because of geography. Now coming to that, for me that was a huge amount. It would have basically meant me not taking a single penny as debt versus me taking a big debt, right? Uh, I actually sat down, discussed this with multiple people, kind of came up with pros and cons for each of the choices and what my life could potentially look like 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line. And looking at aspects, it obviously is academic. It's yes, it is, the kind of people you meet, the network you make, the kind of work you want to do post your MBA. Everything, keeping all of that into account, I did realize that it for me it would just make more sense to go to Michigan Ross, because I firstly did see myself there in terms of being a culture fit, in terms of it being a program of my choice, the reason I'd applied. But also looking at a longer term perspective, I did feel that a couple of years of discomfort potentially because of too much of debt tension was worth it in the longer term. Uh, Having said that, I also know that had I chosen Gosweta for whatever reason, right, from a financial, I would have still probably made it in terms of what I want to do, because in the end the kind of work you want to do after that, provided you know how to network, provided you're able to get that support system, which I know for a fact that every top 25 B school aspires to give you and makes like, they make an effort to do that, the recruitment office or whatever it is. I know my career trajectory would have potentially been similar, if not the same. So I don't think it's just a matter of what you want to do, but also a matter of the kind of network or the kind of environment you want to be in. So for me, that was the major factor rather than just the job aspect. uh, I'm happy to take any questions on that, but as of now, as of today, I do not regret that decision. But I shall speak to you again after 3 years when I'm in debt and working.
Yeah,
So
I would say that's so cool, Mahima. Absolutely. Like I second like the whole GMAT club as a resource. 100%. GMAT club was definitely a resource when I first started. I want to say for me, it was so I got actually full rides from like a few schools, like literally like top 10, top 15 schools. And I actually had huge scholarships as well. But then, like, I decided on the school that didn't give me a scholarship for a reason. And that was because when I saw the employment report and when I spoke to the students that did exactly what I'm planning to do, I realized that a lot of them actually went to the jobs that I am looking to attain after business school. And I've spoken to many of them, and then I realized that a lot of them basically went to not only go to these jobs, but for like the MBA students, like the 2-year MBA or the 1-year MBA students, they kind of didn't get the same opportunity because with the you get like a kind of like a niche kind of degree. You get 2 degrees. So I chose Kellogg based off that. And then, of course, everybody that I spoke with. And I looked at their, short term and long term goals and what they did after business school. And it just seemed like, they kind of did what I wanted to do in the long term. So it just felt right from that perspective.
Yeah, for me, I had a lot of options as well. So in terms of choosing the school, for me, definitely, I came from a very strong technical background. So I knew that somewhere the back of my mind that I want to go into the product management, but I also wanted to try consulting. I wanted to see what that consulting term I'm hearing for so long when I was in my previous job, like what the hell is it? Let's try that out. So when I had multiple options, definitely scholarship was one of the important factors to choose from, considering I didn't have a lot of savings as others did. So I really wanted to make sure that I to get the expenses. So scholarship was helpful, definitely. Two, Atlanta, I did graduate from Emory program in 2020. So Atlanta is the hub of majority of the consulting firms. A lot of the firms have their offices there. So Emory is a core school for them. And MBA has a strong presence in consulting firms, like 47, 50% of the class goes to consulting. So that was something I wanted to try out. So thirdly, I would say I wanted to also I'm more of a small class size program versus a large class size program. So I just wanted to make sure that I don't end up getting out of the business school without knowing a lot of people. So I wanted to be in a school where I can I know all of my 150, 180 classmates, which I know today. So that was pretty cool. And then there are a lot of global opportunities which I know are also in other business schools. But for me, global opportunities was also one of the important factors. I wanted to explore as much as possible. So I would say the most important reason out of all these was I want to try out consulting. But very soon I realized that, okay, consulting is not for me. It's a product management. That's the most exciting thing I like about. So that's why Emory gave me an opportunity to explore consulting and then make a very good decision of not going to consulting. So yeah.
Can I add something, please? First of all, I want to apologize on background noise. A minute ago, there was background noise. I had to mute myself. But I want to add, like, on Abhishek, you brought up some like really important points, right? Like he wanted to, like, Abhishek was mentioning something about like, I wanted to get to know all of my classmates. And I think that was also one of the reasons why I didn't go with some bigger classes, right? So at the end of the day, it's really, I like to believe that business school is what you make out of it. And then also, if you know your goals and what you want to get out of business school, it's a lot easier for you to be able to choose the right business school that fits you and your goals, right? So, you know, some students care about like knowing everybody. Some students just want to get the degree because they want the job from like a, you know, a top 5 school or something like that. So there's no right or wrong, like Mahima mentioned in the beginning, right? It really kind of goes down to what are your goals? What do you want to get out of business school? And I think one of the most valuable things that I've done before business school, and it helped me a lot, was self-reflection. That whole process of like sitting down with myself, asking myself questions about what is it that I want out of business school? Why am I going to choose, for example, a school that did not offer me scholarship versus school that gave me a full ride, right? So all of these are really important questions. And I think if you know what your goals are and you know yourself and what you want to get out of business school, it's a lot easier to choose it. And of course, what you might want today may not be what you want later, like Abhishek was mentioning, that he realized that consulting was not for him. I mean, I also was thinking about like, you know, okay, consulting, maybe it is, maybe not. And I remember when I filled out the application for Cornell, they did offer, Johnson, they did offer like, if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know or something like that. So I like that business schools are being more open about that concept, maybe because they realize that there's so much growth that happens with business students when they come into school, and then their mindset changes about what they want and their priorities. So yeah, just a comment. Yeah, Abhishek, you triggered. So all these comments. Good conversation.
Absolutely agree with everything that you guys have said today. I think another interesting point is that even throughout the application process, your goals might change. That did for me. So originally I thought, you know, my top choice is this school, but I ultimately chose a different program because I had different goals that changed and interests that changed throughout even a short, well, I guess relatively long for some people, application process time. So that's something to keep in mind. Definitely your goals and what you plan to get out of it. If you are just simply looking for a career switch, I think for some folks, they want to save on money and they can get the same goals or similar goals from the same program, but one with a scholarship, they might choose that. But perhaps it's a different network, a larger network. You might choose a bigger program. You want a close-knit network. You might choose a smaller program. So definitely those are all important factors that, you know, might be different for different folks. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for answering those. And the next question is more, I think, tactical that we wanted to ask, but it's more around, you know, the types of loans that you guys, if you're comfortable sharing, if you're planning to take or have already taken, maybe Abhishek, this is more of a question for you, kind of the different options for international students versus domestic students. So definitely want to hear more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm not sure what has changed over the last 2 years, but for international students, federal loans are not provided. So that's a bummer. So most of us like go with either Prodigy or Emory had their own program, credit union, and there are XYZ other programs that offer, and all these are considered private loans. So definitely the rate of interest is higher versus the federal loans, where the rate of interest is hardly 2%, 3%, and even there was 0% for the last 2 years or so. I think they just started it again. But so that's one thing. So private loan for internationals versus federal for domestic. I'm not sure whether that has changed over the last 2 years, but this was the status when I was graduating. So that's yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I believe for federal loans, the limit for the unsubsidized is 20,500, and then you could do subsidized as well a different type grad plus loan for a larger amount for a higher interest rate. Awesome. Dalal, Mahima, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I want to say that when I looked at loans, when I looked at the options, of course, there's the cosigner, no cosigner type of thing. So that's like a huge also decision factor. It was like, cosigner, what if I don't have a cosigner, right? So that was one. And then for me, when I looked at those, I looked at the private companies. So like Empower, Prodigy, all those companies out there. But then a lot of them don't give you, the money for like the whole year. They just give you a portion of it. So you're just going to have to come up with the rest of it. And then, of course, I chose the NU loan, which is the Northwestern University loan. I'm grateful, that I was able to get that from financial aid. And then, of course, there was like the other options of like the private companies that offer like loans without having to have a cosigner. So I don't think that anything has changed, Abhishek, in the last 2 years. Nothing that I know of. Maybe Mahima knows something. I don't know, but I think it's the same stuff, I guess.
I don't think anything has changed. I think the only thing is that whichever B school at least you get into, my experience has been that their financial aid office is really going to try their best to give you all the options up front, right? So I didn't have to do a lot of research because the college does it for you. So for me, that was pretty helpful. Obviously, some B schools have a separate rate of interest depending on if they have a partnership. So that could obviously help you, but not much has changed.
And just want to add one thing here. So I had a loan from Emory Credit Union. It was without cosigner, and majority of the cases they give you 100K, like 25K per semester, and then you can pay off your whatever the remaining tuition fees is, and then leverage that for your living expenses. So that was quite easy. And there another factor of fixed rate versus variable rate. I think private companies mostly provide variable rate versus the fixed rate, where I think federal has both of those options. So that's another thing.
Yeah, I want to add something, Stacey. So for the I-20 for international students, we have to actually prove that we can cover the entire cost when we go to the U.S. Embassy for our appointments for the visas. So, for like everyone that's watching right now, like don't rely just on the fact that there's like loans out there, because the schools, for example, with me, I was able to get from like Northwestern University the whole amount. Some of my classmates were not able to get the whole amount. So you'll have to be able to like proof that you can cover the rest of that for I-20 purposes, for the visa purposes. So, I strongly encourage students, like before pursuing like a loan from schools and kind of just feeling like, okay, I can get a loan, it's easy, whatever, you're going to have like savings potentially to cover whatever is going to, be missing from that loan, right? Or your expenses, because otherwise you're not going to be able to prove that to the U.S. Embassy, and then you don't get a visa or some complications might happen.
Yep, that's a good call out.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add one thing about the fixed and variable rates as well. If you do have the option, for those who are interested in learning more, usually fixed rates are a little bit higher, but obviously they're fixed throughout the duration of your loan, whether it's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year loan or more. And variable rates typically are lower, but they also, if they're subject to change throughout time. So if we're going through, kind of difficult times right now, it might, go very high at some point. There are limits that the contract will have. So it won't go past a certain limit, but it can, it's subject to change. So that's another thing to just keep note of if you're deciding between the two. Awesome. So I think the last question that we want to ask before we, kind of move towards the audience questions, I think there's quite a few, so we want to get started on those. But I think, Abhishek, this is mainly for you, but could you share a little bit more about how you plan to pay back your loans, like the timing, or like how long you take, how much you're like, if it's certain amounts that you're planning, that journey and experience for you so far. We'd love to learn more about that.
Sure. So I would say this is a very personal answer, personal choice when you are thinking of paying off a loan. Because some people think, oh, I need to get rid of this loan ASAP over the next 5 years. And all they do is end up paying most of their salary to the loan amount to get rid of it. I have a different perception to it. My understanding is I can pay the loan over the next 25 years of my life, but I would not have these next 5-10 years of my life back if I don't enjoy the most out of it. So I'm basically 6 months for first, you have to start paying the loan after first 6 months of your graduation. So I have been trying my best to pay the lower minimum that I'm required to pay, or maybe 1.5 or 2 times of that lower minimum every month. But at the same time, obviously my goal is not to keep on paying for the next 25-30 years, because there will be another mortgage loan in a couple of years, buying a house and stuff. But at the same time, I don't want to miss out the opportunities of these next 5-10 years of my life just because I got a huge loan. And I think that's the best thing I like about this flexibility of paying over a longer duration. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abhishek. It's helpful. So right now we're going to move over to the audience questions. Right before that, we are going to play a quick clip from Gatehouse Admissions. And so I will go ahead and play that.
Can be huge. To increase your chances of success at the best schools, you need to work with the best, and that's us, Gatehouse Admissions. Visit us today at gatehouseadmissions.com to schedule a free consultation, and good luck.
Okay. Perfect. So let's get started on the different questions that we've been getting throughout the session. Thank you all for, kind of staying active. And thank you so much for the panelists so far for your really helpful answers and insights about your experiences. So I think one of the first questions, and I'll show it at the bottom here, is so maybe it's more so for Abhishek, but have you ever come across anyone in your program or your social circle who has taken a loan and has found it actually very difficult to repay it?
Okay. I guess, to be honest, I don't know anyone yet, but just to add some words to it, I think people who are not able to get through the H-1B visa lottery after certain chances, when they have to go back, it gets difficult because, again, obviously the currency changes. That's number one. Number two, I feel like when you say difficult to pay, you get like most of these loan agencies, they provide you 25, 30, 15, 20 years to pay off the loan. So it's not that they're after you over the next 1 year or 2 years to say, hey, you got to pay it. And so I would say I haven't met anyone yet. I have some friends who went back to India or other countries because of the H-1B lottery system, but they're still paying for it. And I think the government does support some rebates and stuff in that. I'm not sure a lot about it. Never encountered that, but yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Great. I think the next question, and maybe this, I think everyone could probably, kind of share a little bit about their insight here and decision-making process. So how do loans affect your decision-making process while recruiting? Do you feel pressured to choose, higher paying jobs? Maybe that's not your interest, or maybe you want to work, be an entrepreneur just so you could repay the loan quicker. Did that kind of affect any of your, kind of thoughts while you guys are going through the business school experience or about to?
I can answer that if anyone, Mahima or Bilal, you want to answer.
I thought Mahima was going. I see her hand going to the mute button or something.
No. No, I think I cannot speak from experience, right? I think I cannot speak from experience, but I hope not. I also feel like in terms of the, and please again, just correct me if I'm wrong, right? But at least if you look at the average salaries, I mean, I don't see that happening unless what you want to do is something extremely unusual, or something that people from the B school are not doing. So I don't see that happening. However, Abhishek, I think your inputs here would be out of experience, so that
Yeah,
would be
sure,
helpful.
sure. Thank you. So, question: how do loans affect your decision-making process while recruiting? Are you forced to choose high-paying jobs just because you have to repay the loan? No. I would say you are not working, you're leaving your really good job for 2 years to get an MBA program. That means you're already spending a lot, like a lot of money that you could have earned in those 2 years. Now you're just getting a job because you have to repay the loan is something majority of the students don't do. Because at the end of the day, as I said, it is easier to pay loan. I would prefer to aspire for the job for which I took this decision of leaving my job and getting to an MBA program. I would actually get into that, do all the hard work to get into that. And once you start enjoying your work, you will bring that positive outcomes. It will automatically lead you to getting into that high paying positions versus getting into a job which you don't like, but you are just getting higher money. They're gonna kick you out if you don't like it. You're not gonna bring you positivity, the outcome. They're gonna kick you out. So I would say it's not worth it. Focus on getting your dream job which you want to do, and the things will automatically play out.
Absolutely. All right. If there's nothing else to add there, I think we touched upon this question briefly already, but maybe we can elaborate a little bit more. So the loans that people are taking out or that you've taken out or plan to take out, do they only cover the tuition, or is there anything that helps cover, kind of additional expenses?
So for me, as I said, right, MD provided 25K per semester to 100K, and that was definitely, I would say, 50% of that was more than 50% of that was for my personal expenses or for my travel. So I leveraged that money to go around the world. So to answer your question, it's no, it's not just a tuition cost. Again, it depends on the scholarship. Let's say you're not getting a scholarship, but the loan company is providing you X amount of money, and that X is totally leveraged for your tuition to for you to pay off the tuition fees every semester. And then I would say then you have to find out your own ways of living expenses. But again depends on the company to company how much loan amount you are being allocated to. And they do cover your tuition, your scholarship, your living expenses. If you're coming from an international, they do consider all those factors, not just the tuition fees.
So I would say with the NU loan, the Northwestern University loan, so basically what they did, because even though I haven't started and I'm supposed to start next week, but they already like sent the statements where so you ask for the loan, they approve a specific amount, and then from that amount, they take the tuition fees, and then whatever is left, they kind of like send it to you or refund you, and then you're free to use that however you wish to use it. So that's kind of like how it works, really. So I think it really depends, on the amount that you've requested, and how you wish to allocate it. But the schools usually, if it's a loan from like the school, and I can speak about like the NU loan, basically they just take the amount for tuition and then they give you back the other amount, whatever is left, and then you can spend it the way you want to.
Yep, the same thing happened for me also. They paid 25K to the school deducted the tuition, and then school deposited the rest of the money to your bank account, and you can use it whichever way you want.
Yeah, but again, don't 100% depend on that loan
Yes.
savings. So don't 100% depend.
Right. Great. Yep. And usually, at least from a domestic perspective, you can borrow from, to the cost of attending, like the school will publish a budget. It's sometimes lower than what you might actually need. So for example, I think the MIT budget is only 9 months of rent, but you're probably going to be signing a 12-month lease. You actually can, have a discussion with the school to increase the cost of attendance to then update the loan. provider or servicer. So that's just something to keep in mind. You'll be limited. So like Dalal and Abhishek and have been saying, kind of definitely want to keep in mind your savings as well when you're going through the process. Awesome. The next question, a little bit subjective, but I think someone's wondering about kind of, given everything that's happening today in the, economy and kind of the political conditions in the US and globally as well, does it make sense? How do you guys feel about being in debt since, potentially enrollments of colleges are going down? Although I have heard it's going to be more of a competitive year actually. But any thoughts or, kind of feelings around that, kind of situation currently?
I can speak just really quickly on something that has affected me recently. And thankfully, we're talking about it like at the end so that I don't have to get into it a lot. But so I asked for a deferral from Kellogg. Kellogg offered a deferral because of the visa issue that I have. So I was denied, and there was like a form that was sent to me to fill out, and they were like, oh, it's going to be under administrative processing. I found out that this administrative processing form, or the DS 5535 form, was established in 2017 from the last president, to kind of do extreme vetting on people that are coming to the U.S. So it did affect me. It did affect my decision to go to business school. So that's something recent that has happened to me that I can, that question kind of touched me. Like I was like, oh my God, economic political conditions, absolutely. Does it make sense to be in debt? Yes, absolutely, because you don't have to just think about like the like after you get your MBA, after you go to business school, you don't have to just focus on like going like getting a job in the US. And the US, like the economy is actually great, but you don't have to focus on like just going to like, get a job in the US. There's a lot of like, especially for me, in the tech industry, there's a lot of companies that are recruiting internationally everywhere, right? They have offices everywhere in the world. So your focus shouldn't be just like on geographic, like kind of like location, right? But your focus should be more like about like, okay, how am I going to be able to use that degree to get jobs anywhere I want to go in the world? And if you actually go to a school like a top 20 or something like that, getting a job is like a lot easier anywhere you want, basically, in your industry, especially with like the career services and all the help that you get from them. So, but does it even make sense to be in debt? I would say absolutely, 100%. Yes, that's what I can say.
Yeah, and I think I totally echo what Dalal is saying. I think the best thing about studying in the top 25 or 20 is that you become, you can be hired globally, right? I think for me, that's the biggest boon. And that's the risk. And I mean, I think that's the risk you're taking, right? You're kind of betting on the fact that you can be hired, if not in the States, potentially in UK or any other economy, which can pay you potentially better than your domestic economy.
Absolutely, especially with the alumni. I'm sorry, just to add on, especially with the alumni network being from like all over the world, international community. I mean, all the connections that you'll be making is just insane. Like that alone is like huge, right? So thinking about just like, like looking at the US economy and like, just kind of like making your decision based on just like that economy, I don't think would be the best kind of approach. I think it's more like, is the alumni network strong in the industry that I want to get hired in, right? Is the career services helpful, right? So that kind of like those kind of questions more so definitely are more important.
Yep, I think you guys covered a lot of these. I won't repeat, but there was one part of it which says, does it make sense to be in debt? I would say it doesn't matter. Especially during COVID, our rate of interest, I said variable rate of interest, those decreased, which is good. I was like, oh, wow, it's getting down. So it was like 5%, 6% from where it was at 8, 9%, 10%. So that kind of actually was helpful. But again, in depth, it doesn't matter as long as you're a part of the top 20, 25 business schools, you're leveraging the alumni community, within US, around the world. And majority of these top 25 companies schools have alumni in all the big companies. So as long as you know how to network, you know how to build relationship. And when I say trust me, I suck at it when I joined the business school, but business school trained me so much that now it's very easy to build relationship with people, to network with people. So I think that's what is important. Debt you can pay off in 20-25 years, but the ROI you're getting out of this MBA program is huge.
Absolutely. Thank you, panelists. The next question, so I think Vivi's been answering a lot of these questions so far, so I think a lot of them have been answered already, but this one looks like it's more of a technical one around, locking in your period of loans and processing fees. So I don't think we need to get into the details, but just quickly, kind of answering that question. For a lot of these periods of loans, you select them when you are applying for it. There sometimes are more that are offered or fewer that are offered. So you might get a 5-year loan, you might get a 20-year loan, or something in between, or more or less. You can actually prepay back, at least for domestic, and you guys can tell me if it's different for international, but you can prepay back your student loans. There's no penalties. It's actually illegal in the US from what I understand. So you can prepay them back whenever you want. In terms of processing fees and origination fees, that actually does depend on your loan servicer. I know for federal, there are origination fees, so you'll pay a hard percentage, 1 or 2%, whatever the kind of loan you're taking on is. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're taking out the loan, because you'll actually get less than what you have applied for, minus the fees. But do you guys want to talk a little bit more about, kind of other fees that you either knew about or were surprised about, kind of through your experiences?
Yeah, I can answer that. So it's the same for internationals as well. There's a processing fee component to it, and I agree to your point about to it's personal choice, but I chose 25 years term because I knew that I will be paying earlier, but why would I just take a 5-year and don't end up paying for it? So I chose 25 years just to be safe. And at the end of the day, my goal is to get rid of it in the next 5 to 10 years. So, but yes, the processing fee was dependent on, and there's no penalty of paying the loan earlier. Why would they charge you to get money back? So, right. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. So I think we've answered the majority of the questions here. There is one more that I don't think we've covered. I don't know if you guys, I think you've all spoken a little bit about the loans that you've gotten from your respective programs and your savings. Do you guys know of, kind of the option to take out, loans from either home country, which I've heard before, or, somewhere else? If you guys could share a little bit more about that, if you have information about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about taking loan from the home country, right? So I have taken loan from Indian banks. So I think you can see what makes sense for you. If the rate of interest is lesser, I got a much lesser interest rate, so there is an option to do that. One thing one needs to be cognizant about is that what kind of tax benefits do you get if you're working not in your home country but have taken a loan in your home country. I think that's a thing you need to consider. But other than that, I prefer to take it from my home country because of multiple personal reasons, but also the rate of interest.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I think I agree. It's a totally preference, personal choice. I prefer to take it from international because I was like, if I'm getting it, one, rate of interest was high in my home country. Two, the total amount that they were giving was less than what I would need for my day-to-day expenses and overall tuition fees. So, and it was for me, it was very easier to get a loan from Embry's Credit Union. So they were very open without co-signer and all those things. But in my home country, I need a co-signer and all those things. So it's a personal preference. You need to evaluate what is the best option for you. If you are planning to stay back in US over a long term, and if you're able to get easier, big amount at low interest rate, go for US. And the same for your home country. If you're able to planning to come back to your home country, or you're getting cheaper rates, high amount that you need go for your home country.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for answering these questions. Any last words of advice for people who are considering taking on the MBA loans, or pursuing their degree, who might be maybe hesitant about kind of the process? Any last words of advice or wisdom that you'd like to share with the folks before we end the broadcast today?
Okay, I can speak.
I'm still thinking.
Yeah.
Still thinking.
Okay. So I would say you are about to take the biggest risk, but the best opportunity of your life if you're getting into an MBA program, and live through it. Every day, every moment is crucial because it's going to change the person inside you after 2 years. And like, I personally have changed a lot. If I look back 4 years now, I left my job in 2018. I was totally different from who I am today, and even who I was 2 years ago after my MBA. So I would say it's a great opportunity. It's you have done all the hard work, GMAT, MBA, essays, interview. Now, if you're getting an MBA program, go for it. Don't think about I mean, definitely you need to consider XYZ things, but don't let those stop you from moving ahead in the life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dalal, Mahima, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I want to say, like Abhishek was saying, this is going to be an exciting adventure. I can't speak about the future yet, but I know from the people that I spoke with that, I don't know anyone that has regretted that decision of like pursuing business school. Everything in life costs money, and the good things cost money. And it is, it's just how it is, right? So if you value growth, you value connections, you value knowledge and networking and things like that, you're definitely going to take that step and think, that after 2 years, you're going to be an upgraded version of the version that you were 2 years ago. And I know that from, basically talking to a lot of students that all of them, I don't know anyone who has regretted that decision, really. I don't know anyone who's regretted that decision. So go for it. Don't think twice. It's always important to take calculated risks, but don't overthink it. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, don't overthink it. You just got to go with the flow and just kind of like, enjoy it, right? Just try to enjoy it and don't worry about the loan or repaying the loan and all these little details. There will be a time that will come where you have to worry about these things, but don't worry about them, and maybe do what Abhishek did, do 25 years or something. And just kind of, that's actually, he made me think about it. I'm like, 25 years sounds actually really good, but you convinced me, Abhishek. So, but yeah, good luck to everyone.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't have anything else to add because again, not speaking from experience, but one thing, but before you make this decision, I think you need to be convinced, and the only way you can be convinced is talking to enough people you trust, right? So I think everybody has their own journey, so take some time and to do your research, right? And take the step once you're convinced, so that you also understand the risks and the loan which you're going to take, right? I did this because I spoke to enough people, and I was convinced, right? It took me a year to decide this, but now it's an exciting journey ahead.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you to the panelists especially, and thanks for the folks watching. Hopefully this is helpful. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.